Welcome to martialartsnow.com. I'm Pedro Bennett, the founder of martialartsnow.com, and today's date is September 10th, 2017. And today we have a special guest, and our guest is Professor Ernie Cates. Welcome, Professor Cates.
Thank you very much.
martialartsnow.com would like to welcome you and thank you for your dedication and your services in promoting martial arts over the past several decades. And if you like, let's get started. Tell us about your martial arts experience. Who are you in the martial arts?
Well, I'm one of the veterans of the. I seem to be pretty much the Forrest Gump of the martial arts.
I don't think so. Tell us a little bit more about your arts. How long have you been training? And tell us about some of the systems and styles you've been engaged in, and who have you maybe trained? And just tell a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, I started into the martial arts when I was 14 years old. I'm now 84. I started because in high school I was wrestling, and some of my neighbors were Asian or Japanese, and I was watching them, the young people who were about my same age, in their backyard. They were wrestling. They didn't wrestle like I did. They seemed to be having a really good time, and I started to interact with them. And then I started to learn what was called, in those days, Jujitsu, or the gentle art. There was nothing really gentle about it. But it was extremely effective. I was extremely interested in it, and that was the start. I was 14 years old, and I've been on the mats ever since.
And did you just train in the United States, or did you train in other countries, or share some experience with us?
On my 17th birthday, I joined the Naval Reserve. At that time, the Korean War was just escalating. Excuse me. I continued to train wherever I could. In the Jiu-Jitsu in San Francisco, I was able to come in contact with some young people that were training, naval people that were training in Jiu-Jitsu. And, well, this is hard to start because it was segmented, and I have a hard time articulating at times, and right now I'm having one of those.
That's no problem. I still have a problem doing the same myself.
But my stepdad was an unusual individual, and he taught me right from the start that never to go for second place in anything, in life, in school, in athletics, or whatever it might be. He was a world record holder in track, and he trained me to run when I was young. I did very, very well in high school as a runner, and went to college at the University of Iowa on a track scholarship. As my dad told me, if when you run, you look back to see who's following you, you're not going to win, because the person that's following you is going to be in front of you. And that was a lesson in his words. This was a lesson in life. Never look back, never take second place, always go for first place, and I did so. In track, I did extremely well. I also speed skated, and again, in my family, it was never a pastime. When I decided to start skating, my dad took me to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and introduced me to Willie Yates and Ed Shimmick, who had both been Olympians. And they're the ones that taught me how to skate. When I went to college, I won the Chicago Silver Skates. Set several records in track. As a freshman at Iowa, I won the Big Ten indoor two-mile championships. And I carried it over. I tried boxing for a while. I wasn't very good at it.
How long did you stay in boxing?
Well, I could take a punch real well, but that's no way to be a success.
Right.
And I tried football. And when I tried football, my coach watched me for a while, and he said, Ernie, if you continue with football, you're going to spend a lot of time sitting on a bench. But if you do cross country, you could be state champion. And so I switched to cross country, and I was state champion.
Excellent.
I searched for answers in the martial arts because it interested me very, very much. And when I went, I did 4 years with the Navy Reserve, and then I went in the Marine Corps. In the Marine Corps, it was an unusual career. I had been raised as a young person, all the way from first grade up through the 9th grade. I was in boarding schools, and I never did have, until my stepdad came along, I never did have a family, quote, family life. I was educated by the Sisters of Perpetual Guilt, and that's what I called them anyway. And the Jesuits. Well, you spend 8 years with the Jesuits in boot camp as a snap. It was kind of like going on a vacation. Following Marine Corps boot camp, I kept pursuing the martial arts as much as I could. Those were early days in the martial arts in the United States, and there was not much activity at all. It wasn't. I was stationed at San Francisco on Treasure Island for a year, and there I ran into some good Jujitsu competitors that introduced me to the finer portions of the Jujitsu. And then I got orders to Okinawa. When I went to Okinawa, we stopped off in Korea, and I was with Baker Amtrax at Incheon. We then migrated down to Yokosuka, Japan, where I got to see judo for the first time, actual judo. And then we went on down to Okinawa, and in Okinawa, this was 1954, and we were the first Marines to come into Okinawa since the Second World War. It was an experience because the Okinawans, when they saw the camouflage covers on the Amtrax, on the personnel in the Amtraks, they knew the Marines were coming in, and the first 3 villages moved out. It took about 3 weeks for them to come back into occupying their homes. I asked about Jujitsu. There was none on the island, but they did have judo, and there was one instructor on the island that would handle gaijin or foreigners, and that was Matsumoto Sensei. He was a policeman, an Okinawan policeman, that had a dojo in Goya. The students that he had were Jack Grumbush, Jim Bridges, and my goodness, it's been a long time.
Understood.
Anyway, there's three of them that were regular gaijin in the dojo, and along came I, and I was really fascinated by judo. It was a totally foreign to me. So the first few weeks with Matsumoto Sensei, I was already quote green belt in Jujitsu, and I was going to switch to a white belt since I was starting judo, and he told me, Matsumoto Sensei told me no, to keep the green belt. 6 weeks after being there, he took me to a tournament in Naha, where suddenly he had five brown belts were lined up, and I got to play against all 5 of them, one after the other. It's called Go-Waka Shogo, where you don't get any rest in between, and you fight until you lose. I was able to throw all 5 of them, and suddenly I was an EQ, first degree brown belt. A few months later, he took me back to Naha for another tournament, and this time there were 5 black belts, and I defeated all 5 of them for full points, and all of a sudden I were a black belt. I was the third gaijin or foreigner to make black belt on Okinawa. 1956, Matsumoto Sensei put together a team of 5 of us from his dojo, and we entered the all Ryukyu Islands Judo Championships, which took in police teams and college teams from all over the Ryukyu Islands. These are the southernmost islands of Japan. So we were a 5-man team. We went against 5-man teams from the different colleges and police departments, and we won. It was a 2-day tournament, and we won the Ryukyu Islands Championships, taking it away from the Japanese for the first time. I was competing all over the island, and had a really good run. And the Marine Corps decided that since I had the talent, that they should capitalize on it a bit, and so I got to go to the Kodokan in Tokyo. Now, this was a period directly following MacArthur's governing of the islands of Japan. During his reign, he had shut down all martial arts. The Japanese were not allowed to practice martial arts. There were no open dojos in Japan. 1954, they started opening up. The Kodokan opened up again, and I was very, very fortunate in that when I went to the Kodokan, the foreign student section, which was run by Kotani Sensei, accepted myself and the 4 Marines that I took to the Kodokan with me, as students for the foreign student section. The Air Force had just signed a contract with the Kodokan to train hand-to-hand combat instructors for the Strategic Air Command. Several of the people that were there became extremely famous within the judo ranks in the early days of judo in the United States. One of them was George Harris, another was Roby Reed. John Osako had just made a tour of Japan along with Harris, and John was a phenomenal judo player. I got to meet him there at the Kodokan. I also got to meet Anton Goshin, John Blooming, who challenged Mas Oyama to a match, which Mas, regardless of the amount of money that was involved, Mas wouldn't fight him.
I see.
I don't blame him. John ran the security for the red light district in Rotterdam, Holland, and in Amsterdam for a long time. He was one tough individual. But I was there during the beginning of the transformation, you know, of the introduction of the martial arts world, the Oriental martial arts world, to the Americans. When I went out, Kotani Sensei had me train on the main mat during what's called the summer Keiko, where all the best judo players of all Japan come to the Kodokan for 1 month, and they train under the very best instructors that are available. And some of the people that I got to run dori with out on the mat were Daigo Sensei, who was twice world champion. Ishikawa was there. Nakabayashi was on the mats. Yoshiba was just developing Aikido then. He was often a guest, although he wasn't a member of the Kodokan. When I first got to go on the main floor, I was pretty cocky. I was 190 pounds, region Islands champion, and I asked Kotani Sensei, how do you get to work? There were about 100 black belts in there on the main floor. I said, how do you get to work out? He says, well, you look over against the wall, and the people sitting against the wall are taking a rest. You walk over to one of them and you bow, and you say, "Onegaishimasu," which is the secret to all Japanese language. Onegaishimasu in literal translation probably means "let's do it," or "will you do it with me," or "let's go," or whatever. So I looked around to find somebody that was available, and over against the wall I saw this young gentleman with a brand new judogi on and a brand new obi, and his right arm was wrapped up in a bicycle inner tube. I said, yeah, there's a new black belt, and he's hurt. I think I'll pick him. And I walked over, and in my best Okinawan, I said, "Onegaishimasu Sensei, Nissan." Nissan in Okinawan means little brother. That's an insult in Japan.
Oh.
Anyway, he stood up and came out with me, and he tore me a new ass. He was really smooth, soft, beautiful judo player. I figured, this time it's tearing me up standing. I'm going to take him to the ground and eat his ass. And I took him to the ground, and he was better than I was on the ground too.
Wow.
And we finished the randori, and when I stood up, I said, "Nan desu ka," which means, what the hell are you? He looked at me like I was crazy. He was a Yandan, 4th degree black belt. He was Watanabe of Meiji University. He was the captain of the Meiji University team. And so I quit being so selective, and I took whoever I could work out with, and that's when I met Daigo Sensei. When I went back to Okinawa, started competing continuously. The Marine Corps assigned me as the Marine Corps' representative to the Okinawan Sports Council, and it was then that I started meeting people from different disciplines. I met different karate senseis, Samabuku being one of them. He was a friend of one of my coaches, and I got to know him socially. Now, he was the originator of Isshin-ryu. Tatsu didn't have a dojo. He had a backyard. He was a farmer. He had a backyard in Shuri. And he was teaching 4 Marines a form of karate that he was developing. It was called Isshin-do. The leading student that he had was Don Nagel, who at the time I think was 19 years old. Don and I became friends, and when I rotated back to the United States, I continued competing, and I got stationed in Camp Lejeune. There was no judo at Camp Lejeune per se, so I got, being an adventurous soul, I opened a judo dojo on New Bridge Street in Jacksonville, North Carolina. When Don came back to the United States, I invited him to teach karate at the dojo. That was the first Isshin-ryu dojo in the United States. There were only 4 practitioners that came back at that in 1956. Each one opened a dojo or taught in a dojo at different dojos throughout the country. 4 beginners, from those 4 initial students of Tatsu Samabuku, in the years from then to now, Isshin-ryu is now the largest karate discipline in the United States and is fast becoming the largest karate discipline in the world. And I got to know the beginners, the individuals that were the pioneers in the martial arts. Included in that group was Jim Chapman, Rick Namura, Gary Alexander, of course Don, and they were, each one of it was extremely influential in his own way, and I watched Isshin-do change to Isshin-ryu and grow. In judo, I trained a judo team at my school. Plus, the Marine Corps assigned me to special services there in Camp Lejeune, and I ran track for them for 1 year, and then I formed a team to compete in the All Marine Corps Judo Championships. It was 1958, went to San Diego. I took 2nd place in the All Marine Corps Judo Championships. I was beaten by Danny Powers, who was a awesomely good judo player. He had trained with John Osako for a long time. 1959, I took another team to Paris Island for the All Marine Corps Judo Championships. We were fighting in weight groups by that time. There were 4 weight groups. There were 3 places in each weight group that got trophies. We took, Camp Lejeune took all 4 weight groups. All 4 places in each weight group. And I not only took my weight group, but I took the All Marine Corps overall championship, fighting against the champions of each weight group. It was a pretty easy time because I had coached all of them.
That gives you some insight.
Right. I won the All Marine Corps Judo Championships 7 times in a row. I won the won the Grand Championship 5 times in a row, and I won the Inter-Service Championship twice, Grand Championship twice, defeating Nelson Cross, and who was an awfully good player from the Air Force. I had over 300 matches, and I lost 12.
Wow, that's a pretty good feat there.
In 1958, I remember I had just come back from Japan, and I was competing all the time in the Marine Corps. Had assigned me to judo, and that's all I did. That was my job. I went to the air base at God damn it, I'm getting a brain fart here.
It's okay. we have those.
Anyway, in the tournament, it was a very large tournament, and I won the tournament. Following it, I did an exhibition of Gohaku Shobo, in that I lined up 25 black and brown belts that had been in the tournament, and I fought Gohaku Shobo against them, defeating all 25 of them in less than 15 minutes.
Nice.
It wasn't a fair fight.
It wasn't?
No, it was what I did for, that was my job.
Right.
These guys were recreational players. They played maybe 4 to 6 hours a week.
I see.
So there was a big difference. One of the students that I had at that time that I was coaching was Howard George. Howie had been 5 times national AAU champion at 196 pounds in wrestling. He was also chosen for the 1960 Olympic team as a Greco-Roman wrestler. The United States had no Greco-Roman wrestlers. So Howard came down to the dojo because Greco-Roman wrestling is very close, or is very similar to judo. And Howard trained with us for 2 years prior to the Olympics in 1960. He became an outstanding judo player. And that was another one that came out of the school.
Let me ask you a question now. With your vast experience, what has been your greatest martial art experience?
Being at the Kodokan.
Why is that?
Because I was exposed to the very best in the world. I played at Yokosuka. I played Ino Kuma when he was still in high school. Ino Kuma was was a product of Don Drager's. Drager trained him with weights. He was the first weight-trained judo player. Kuma beat Isshin. Isshin weighed 300 pounds. Kuma weighed 190. I met people at the Kodokan that were, they were early legends in the judo world. Also, having Matsumoto as a primary sensei in Okinawa, he was an amazing man. He taught us that the judo mat was a mini world, and on that mini world we would experience every emotion, every feeling. We would experience love, hate, desire, pain.
I believe that.
And a respect for the persons that we partnered up with or competed against. He taught us that there was no difference in human beings. When you stepped on that mat, you were all the same. And I really appreciate, I've carried that throughout my life. I get criticized for being politically incorrect because of Matsumoto, I don't see any ideologies or races or any of the rest of that stuff. I'll go into a room or into a seminar or whatever it might be, and I can't remember what shade anybody was. And I've forever thanked him for that.
I think that's great that he was able to assist you with that. Tell me something. What characteristic stands out as a comparison between the way that you trained and the martial arts that you received in comparison to the martial arts you see today in the 21st century?
We didn't practice techniques, we practiced principles. If you have the proper principle, the technique manifests itself.
I see.
It happens. A match back then was 20 minutes long. We had if you didn't score during that 20 minutes, you then had the possibility of 2 10-minute overtimes before it went to a decision. A match now takes less than 5 minutes.
Right.
And
that's interesting.
The
yeah. We have honor and respect, and these are two characteristics that most martial art instructors, as well as parents, seek from students and others. Well, what does honor, respect, and loyalty mean to you?
Within that mini world, you find that you have to respect the partner that you're working with. I carried that over into general life. In Vietnam, I was assigned as a psychological operations officer. All of the troops that I handled and advised were repatriated VC. They had been NCOs and officers in the main force VC. We paid them a lot more money. But one thing about it is, I was never angry at the enemy. If you're angry, you have to respect the enemy. You have to, what honor is there in defeating someone that you don't respect?
Understood.
They were damn good professionals. As a police officer, I never worked with emotions. I tried to work with understanding. The power to arrest someone and take away their freedom is an awesome power. if you don't respect the fact that you've got that power, you become a badge and a gun walking a man around. It's the same thing in the services. If you don't respect the enemy, you may not like him, but in his own way, there's an area there that you have to respect. How in the hell can you defeat an ideology? You know,
Right.
You can't.
Right. Right.
And they fight, no matter who they may be, no matter what venue you take in. Those people are fighting to the best of their ability, and very often at a distinct disadvantage in technology. And that's a spillover from the philosophy you develop in the martial arts.
And I agree, it is difficult to change the ideals or the psyche of other individuals, particularly if you're not able to talk, even though you might be beaten, but still sometimes that provokes them to even try and be a little bit more loyal to their beliefs. I agree with you. But please give us a situation in which you failed, in which you did not achieve a goal that you desired to achieve. And in doing so, please explain what did you do? How did you handle failure?
I accepted it.
Mm.
And that's another thing that I learned early on in the martial arts is if you have a difficulty with a person, you have the difficulty with that person, not with the world around, not with the surrounding population, not with people you come in contact with. One of the things that I loved the best about Wally J, Professor J, in all the years I knew him, never said a bad thing about anyone.
Mm.
I'd like to think I've been able to do the same thing. If I have a difficulty with someone, I have the difficulty with that individual, and I don't have to broadcast it to the rest of the world. The harmony of the home, that's a primary thing in martial arts. Within your home, when somebody enters your home, whether you like them, hate them, despise them, or whatever they may be, if they're a guest in your home, if they come through that door, they are a guest, and the harmony of the home takes precedence. They will never be insulted inside your home.
Understood. Having 70 plus years of martial arts experience, if you had to start over, would you do anything different?
No.
Why is that?
I'm probably egocentric in that area.
Mm.
I've tried very hard to live the type of life that the early senseis that I came in contact with were able to teach me. I'm not always successful in it, but I try to do it. I think I've approached it fairly well, or succeeded in it fairly well. I have no regrets on the people that I have come in contact with within the martial arts. I've been extremely fortunate in that everyone has influenced me. Both in the technical abilities that they show. And again, that mini world of the martial arts that it takes place within a dojo has to spill over into your professional life, into your social life, into your domestic life, and so on. If it doesn't, you're wasting your damn time on that.
Right.
There is competition. Kano Sensei, when he set up judo, hated competition because his competition develops egos.
Yes.
And therefore, once you've got the ego, you become so enamored with self that you can't function successfully within the world that you're exposed to. You may not agree with people, you may not. And I'm not politically correct at all times.
Yes.
All of this pulling down stuff. This is I'm going away from this shit. But do you know that at Paris Island there's a statue? It's Iron Mike. If they pull that sucker down, they're going to find that at the bottom of Iron Mike is a big plug. And when that plug is pulled, Paris Island is going to sink.
Wow.
But
yeah.
people get hung up on the stupidest things. Really, they do.
Well,
think of all the things you're missing.
Right.
If you don't communicate with and actually take an interest in what this other person is or who it is. If you're so ingrained or so totally taken up with self, you can't really live a good life.
And what you just described is balance. I mean, because if you one-sided and you yourself, I mean, you just one-sided. You know, balance. There's there's two sides to the story, at least two sides of the story, and to find balance. And Pierce, you found that.
One of the things I'm really proudest of, and Grandmaster sitting alongside me was or is the tool that I think is going to be a success, is that martial arts means military art, right?
Right.
Why have we not recognized that within the military and the military training that we do? We've never really recognized that as an art. An individual joins the Army or joins the Marine Corps or joins the Navy or he has just joined a huge dojo.
Right.
And his training within that dojo is training in a military art.
Right.
And having this Grandmaster sitting alongside me here, I'm very, very proud of the development that he has been able to make in the years that he's been associated with me. I think he's the epitome of what I've been searching for, and that's why I put every bit of political clout I had and so on behind him, to have him as the head of the military arts within my discipline of Neko-Ryu.
And for our audience, would you please share the Grandmaster name?
Yeah, Denny Langford.
Yes.
He's
Indeed.
very, very. You wouldn't believe the year that he put in order to break into the Neko-Ryu family.
Yes.
Every day.
Which is your system.
Right.
Yes.
Every day for a year he took the beating that you, and then I entered him in a tournament knowing that he wasn't ready for tournament. And he got his ass whacked. But that taught him.
Right.
As a sergeant major in the Army, he was in charge.
That's right.
suddenly he had to have something that gave him some humility. And he gained it in one day.
Excellent.
After that, he became a well-rounded, exemplary martial artist. And he's one of the, in my estimation, one of the great successes that I can that I've been a part of. I didn't create him; he created it himself. But I gave him some of the tools that it took to create himself.
You know, it's more like you creating a mini me.
Anyway.
I think that's super, and that's excellent words to say for one of your students and to pass on such knowledge. I had the opportunity to watch you doing the seminar you presented today, and I would say you're a very good teacher, and you did share a lot of good information. I just wish there were more individuals to see you. Now, we had a good audience, but we're talking about like hundreds and many other thousands of people could see, and you could share your knowledge, and just unfortunate. And I'm going to ask you a question. What does family mean to you?
Growing up, I never had one.
Right.
So I probably appreciate family more than most people do.
Understood.
My family was in Marine Corps.
Marine Corps, yes.
I've been extremely fortunate in my own family experiences. I'm married now for the third time. My first wife and I were married for 47 years. She passed away from cancer. It was a great loss. I still miss her very much.
Understood.
I married a very good friend of mine who I had known for 16 years prior to my wife's passing. She was the senior black belt in Kung Nu, which is a Vietnamese influenced martial art that I had some input on, in that I helped train Professor No Dong, who was the Soki of Kung Nu when I was in Vietnam. And for 16 years had influence over the development of his martial arts career. Mary and I were married for 3.5 years. She passed away from a brain aneurysm, which came out of nowhere. I went on the road for 2 years doing seminars all over the country. And then I was sitting in San Diego, having done a seminar for Mark Coangelo, who was one of our senior black belts. And my daughter called me up and said there was someone who wanted to talk to me, and her best friend got on the phone and invited me, would I like to have dinner when I got back off the tour? I said, yeah, I'm no fool. And I met my present wife, and that was 10 years ago. We've had a good solid marriage, and it's continuing that way. So I've been fortunate there too. But nothing better happened to my present wife, because I'll be under investigation.
Yes, most definitely. We have come to a close. MartialArtsNow.com would like to thank you, Professor Ernie Cates, for agreeing to be interviewed and sharing your vast experience with us. I am Pedro Bennett, the founder of MartialArtsNow.com, and I would like to thank you for listening. Stay tuned, and I'll be back.